Now the chair recognizes our witnesses, and I'll introduce them first before we hear their opening statements. To my left, to your right, is Mr. John D. Swofford, who is the current commissioner of the Athletic Coast Conference. Next to Mr. Wolford is Mr. Craig Thompson, who's the commissioner of the West Mountain Conference. And next to Mr. Thompson is Mr. Derek Fox, who is the president and CEO of the Alamo Bowl, representing the Football Bowl Alliance. And lastly, next to Mr. Fox is one Mr. Gene Blameyer, who is the athletic director of Boise State University. Again, welcome each and every one of you. Mr. Swofford will begin with you for 5 minutes of opening statements or thereabouts. Please pull the mic to you and turn it on, and you're not recognized.
Excuse me. Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Ranking Member Barton, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Swofford, and I've been commissioner of the Atlantic Coast Conference since 1997. Prior to that, I was the athletic director at the University of North Carolina, my alma mater, for 17 years. I speak to you today not only as someone who has been fortunate to spend my entire professional career as an athletic administrator, but also as a former student athlete in the sport of football. While I was in college, I was fortunate to play at UNC and participate in 2 postseason bowl games. Like most student athletes, my football career ended when I received my undergraduate degree. My own experiences in the Peach Bowl and Gator Bowl remain among the fondest memories of my athletic career. As an administrator, I have tried to ensure that those same postseason opportunities exist for as many student athletes as possible. Currently, the Atlantic Coast Conference serves as the coordinating offices for the Bowl Championship Series. This is an assignment that rotates every 2 years among the conferences that are a part of the BCS arrangement. The BCS is now 11 years old, and it is the result of a group of people at the various conferences and selected bowls asking one question: how can we keep the bowl system and also create a championship game that includes the number 1 and number 2 ranked teams on an annual basis? Prior to the current BCS structure, the 2 top-rated teams played each other only 9 times in 45 years. The BCS exists to accomplish 3 relatively simple goals. 1, create the opportunity for a national championship game. 2, maintain the bowl structure and create quality matchups. And number 3, maintain and enhance college football's regular season as the best and most meaningful in all of college sports. The BCS has been successful in reaching these 3 goals. It has paired the number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in the nation on an annual basis. It now includes all 11 of the Football Bowl subdivision conferences. Every conference has more access into the highest level of bowl games, more money, and access potentially into the national championship game than ever before. During the BCS 11-year span, college football has flourished. Attendance is soaring. Television ratings are high. BCS television ratings regularly outrate the NCAA Basketball Final Four, the NBA Playoff Finals, and the World Series. Recently, the level of interest of young people in various sports was measured. NASCAR and the NFL over the last decade gained 1%. College football gained 9% in the 12 to 17 age group, the largest gain of any sport. Most every other sport has actually devalued the regular season, while college football's regular season has only gained in stature, interest, attendance, and television coverage. While realizing that many American sports fans relate very well to a playoff system, much of this could be lost if the regular season were turned into a seeding process. The current system maintains long-term bowl alliances. Bowls have existed for over 90 years in some cases, starting with the Rose Bowl. They stand as cultural icons in our country. 29 non-BCS bowls create regional interests, support charitable causes, generate tourism, economic impact, and tax dollars for host cities, as well as give approximately 6,000 young men, most of whom are not fortunate enough to play on college championship teams, the chance to enjoy a memorable postseason experience. Bowls are not merely games. They're events. Teams do not travel to them the day before the game and leave immediately afterward, as in the regular season or would be the case in a playoff. Rather, they go to the host city and stay as many as 6 days, enjoying the hospitality of the bowl organization. Fans travel to the games and stay for several days, thus generating economic benefits for the host city and allowing the bowl to attract local sponsors and support that help it fulfill its economic and charitable missions. For example, the Sugar Bowl estimates that the 2 BCS bowl games played in January 2008 created an economic impact in the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana of nearly $400 million. State and local governments realized nearly $25 million in tax revenues as a result of those 2 games. We cannot reasonably expect fans and teams to travel multiple times in December or January, staying several days in each location. Our fans do not have the time, and most do not have the financial resources to do so. Moreover, I am not aware of any football playoff in this country at any level in which all games are played at predetermined neutral sites that may be thousands of miles from the homes of the participating teams. College football is different than professional. There are 120 bowl subdivision college football teams, and our preference is that a system provide a large number of those teams with a postseason opportunity. Professional football, with only 32 teams, can make a 12-team playoff work nicely within its structure. Like all other football playoffs in the NCAA and the professional leagues, early round games of any bowl subdivision playoff would almost certainly be played at campus sites, with only the final contest at a neutral site. As the playoff grows, sponsorship and television revenues that historically have flowed into bowl games and their host cities will inevitably follow, meaning that it will be very difficult for any bowl, including the current BCS bowls, which are among the oldest and most established in the game's history, to survive. The current system also keeps football a one-semester sport, maintains the integrity of the regular season, preserves the overall bowl system, does not conflict with fall semester exams in most instances, and adds only one additional game. One of the reasons we are where we are in postseason college football is because of the fact that the BCS is a system that the conferences have individually and collectively been able to agree on. Decisions concerning the BCS arrangement are made by a presidential oversight committee, which is a group of university presidents and chancellors, with advice from conference commissioners, athletic directors, and coaches. The BCS arrangement is reviewed annually by all 11 conference commissioners and an athletic directors advisory panel. We also seek the advice of representatives of the American Football Coaches Association on certain matters. Ultimately, our presidents and chancellors remain strongly committed to the balance of academic and athletic excellence. Their first priority is their students and preparing them for their futures. The BCS, we find, is fully consistent with the educational mission of our colleges and universities and maximizes the number of postseason opportunities for our student athletes, coaches, and fans. Now, each year, one or more of the conferences submits ideas for change in the current system. All of them receive careful and deliberate consideration. Last year, for example, the Atlantic Coast Conference and the Southeastern Conference proposed a format adjustment. This year, the Mountain West has suggested a different adjustment in the format, and the conferences will consider that proposal during their various upcoming spring meetings.
Mr. Swofford, you're almost 4 minutes over, but I've been pretty. So would you bring your comments to a close, please?
Thank you, sir. We're aware that no mechanism for determining a college football national champion will ever be perfect without controversy or without ambiguity. We're always open to suggestions to improve the BCS or the game of college football as a whole. In closing, college football continues to be managed within the context of higher education. University presidents and chancellors seek a balance between the academic missions of their institutions and the desire of fans for a system to crown a national champion. We want to maintain the significance of the regular season and support a vibrant postseason bowl structure that provides a maximum number of opportunities for student athletes. Mr. Chairman, I have a letter from a number of conferences, presidents, and the University of Notre Dame that I would like to submit for the record, please.
So ordered.
Again, thank you for the opportunity to be with you today and to address these matters.
The chair now recognizes Mr. Thompson for 5 minutes or thereabouts.
Thank you, Chairman Rush, Ranking Member Barton, and members of the subcommittee for holding this important hearing. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. The presidents of our 9-member institutions believe there are 5 fundamental flaws with the current BCS system. They also feel criticism without a solution solves nothing. Therefore, the Mountain West Conference has submitted a proposal known as the BCS Reform Proposal, which addresses each of these flaws. First, BCS revenue distribution is grossly inequitable. There are 6 automatic qualifying conferences known as AQ conferences, whose champions are guaranteed access to lucrative BCS bowl games each year, regardless of how they perform on the field. These conferences receive more than 87% of the revenue from the BCS, whereas the other 5 conferences, called non-automatic qualifying conferences, collectively receive under 13%. Under the current system, conferences that perform in a similar manner are not treated the same. The Mountain West has performed well against the 6 automatic qualifying conferences and interconference games over the past 4 years. Yet during that same span, the BCS has paid each of these 6 conferences an average of $78 million in revenue, while we received just $18 million. To illustrate the point, in 2008, the Mountain West and an AQ conference each had 1 team play in a BCS bowl. We had 3 teams ranked in the top 16, all of whom finished above that conference's champion. Yet the AQ conference still received almost $9 million more from the BCS for that year. If the revenue was more fairly distributed, non-automatic qualifying universities could use the additional funds to improve academic programs, increase scholarships, increase medical support for student athletes, and pursue a host of other beneficial purposes. The reform proposal would also result in considerable new revenue for all conferences, so that all universities would benefit financially. In this economic climate, that is extremely important. Second, the BCS relies on non-performance-based standards to determine which conferences are guaranteed access. Specifically, the BCS uses bowl tie-ins and agreements to determine which conferences automatically qualify. Pre-arranged agreements trump results on the field. The reform proposal ensures that performance is the primary factor in determining which conference champions automatically qualify for the high-profile BCS bowls. Under the proposal, a conference has to win at least 40% of its interconference games against AQ conferences over a 2-year period to earn an automatic bid. Third, none of the 51 teams that play in non-AQ conferences can realistically ever have the opportunity to win a BCS national championship, given how the current system is constituted. Such a result is patently unfair. Again, in 2008, the Mountain West had the best interconference record against AQ conference teams, and Utah had the best record in major college football. However, those student athletes did not have an opportunity to compete for the national championship. Utah was eliminated this past season not by a team but by the BCS system. The BCS incorrectly presumes that computers and pollsters can look at several outstanding teams and somehow determine which 2 deserve to play in a national championship game. To remedy this flaw, the reform proposal creates an 8-team playoff. This will not only produce substantial new revenue, but it will also make the regular season and postseason much more exciting. Many more regular season games will impact the national championship race under this proposal, and the number of postseason games with title implications will also increase exponentially. The playoff would only add about a week and a half to the season during the winter break, and then only for 2 teams. Fourth, the BCS relies on confusing computer formulas and pollsters to decide the BCS rankings. The reform proposal would use a well-informed committee like the committee in college basketball to make these important determinations. Fifth, the BCS dictates unbalanced representation on its governing body. The reform proposal would permit each conference and Notre Dame to have exactly one vote. Our presidents believe that by remedying these 5 flaws, the BCS reform proposal helps to ensure higher education is sending the appropriate messages to students and is acting above reproach. One of the primary objectives of universities is to ensure students graduate with a firm understanding of the principles of fundamental fairness and equitable treatment. Yet support of the current BCS system is not consistent with those principles. It is consistent with the message that if you work hard, you have a chance to reach any goal. That's simply not true under the current BCS format. Given the system's fundamental flaws, it is time for the BCS to act. It should join President Obama, Vice President Biden, and members of Congress from both parties in acknowledging the need for change and take the appropriate steps now to develop a more equitable system. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to answering questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. The chair now recognizes Mr. Fox for 5 minutes or thereabouts for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, and Ranking Member Barton, my name is Derek Fox. I'm the former chairman and currently at-large member of the Football Bowl Association. I am also president and CEO of the Valero Alamo Bowl in San Antonio, Texas. I'm here today representing the members of the Football Bowl Association, a group that includes all 34 postseason bowl games, from the members of the BCS to the smallest of the postseason events. These games are played in 29 different communities. Our association has been in existence for more than a quarter century, and we've grown as the number of bowl games has grown. My purpose in appearing here today is to tell you that the current bowl system, for whatever flaws it may have, is more than just alive and kicking. But also is to say that if the net result of your efforts is to create a playoff, we believe you will, by substituting games for events, cause the demise of the bowl system. My prepared statement details the current postseason structure, the benefits to the institutions, and the benefits to the players and their fans. But I'd like to stress to you the benefits enjoyed by the communities where these games are played. What does it mean to the 29 communities where the games are held? For one thing, since almost all the postseason bowl games are put on by charitable groups, with up to 1/4 of the proceeds from the games are dedicated to the community, local charities receive tens of millions of dollars every year. Excluding television and print exposure these communities receive, it has been estimated that the bowl games will generate in excess of $1 billion in annual economic impact. As I said before, we don't put on games, we put on events. Fans make the bowl experience a holiday experience, spending up to a week in the community, supporting pre- and post-Christmas businesses in hotels, restaurants, and visitor attractions. Moreover, the title sponsor or presenting sponsors of a bowl game frequently is a commercial institution headquartered in the host city, whose integration into the community and vice versa is enhanced by the bowl game itself. It is our firm belief that if a playoff is created, the television dollars in the postseason will flow to that playoff. Likewise, the sponsorship dollars. And when that happens, the mid-tier bowls, and most assuredly the smaller bowls, will simply go out of business. Those who don't like the current system will say, well, that's the way of the world. But we don't believe that government should have any role in promoting the demise of the bowl games. Let me address a situation I'm quite familiar with, being the president and CEO of the Valero Alamo Bowl in San Antonio. Periodically, we have conducted an economic and fiscal impact analysis for our event. The most recent study was done 14 months ago between Penn State and Texas A&M. This was not some back-of-the-envelope estimate, but rather a 30-page intensive analysis performed by a combined efforts of 2 respected sets of economists, Sports and Strategic Marketing Services of Memphis, Tennessee, and Sports Economics of Oakland, California. They concluded that there were more than 55,000 incremental visitors coming to San Antonio for the game, who spent an average of just over $740 during their stay. They stayed on average for 3.8 days, spending $195 a day, plus an additional $142 in tickets and other costs in the dome. These visitors included not only the fans of the competing schools, but the teams themselves and a full contingent of media covering the event. Their expenditures including lodging, food and beverage, transportation, rental cars, retail, and entertainment. According to the study, the direct economic impact of the city of San Antonio was $42.6 million. The total economic impact to the city of San Antonio, including the recognized multiplier, was $73.7 million. And the incremental tax impact to the city of San Antonio, i.e. taxes collected as a result of the event's operations and non-local visitors traveling to that city, would not have accrued to the region if it were not for the presence of the event being measured, was $2.7 million. Why do I cite all this? The reason is simple. We don't simply put on a game, we put on an event that runs the better part of a week. It involves not only the game itself, but a kickoff luncheon, a team fiesta, a pep rally, great party, golf tournament, FCA breakfast, team days at SeaWorld, Alamo visit, hospital visits, you name it. It's an entire week's package for the student athletes and their fans. Create a playoff, and if the postseason games do not evolve to home games on college campuses, you will create a one-day in-and-out experience, if that, to replace the current bowl system. The proponents of a playoff system simply do not understand the economics of the current system as one of events, not just games. No system is perfect. The bowls are not perfect, and the bowl championship series is not perfect. But certainly the concept of a playoff, as attractive as it may sound from the experts on sports talk radio, is rife with dangers for a system that has served collegiate athletics pretty well for 100 years. It's easy to express support of a playoff concept, which has never been tested. All of your assumptions and theories work out perfectly. With the current structure of the bowl games, you protect the importance of the college football regular season, and as importantly, you have 29 communities committed to providing not just the financial support, but a quality experience for the thousands of players and fans who attend each bowl game. The current bowl system does reward over 6,800 student athletes, creates more than $1 billion in annual combined economic impact to the host cities, donates $250 million annually to higher education, and gives millions to charitable endeavors in their own communities. Quite simply, it's a system that works well, benefits many, and ought not to be under attack. Mr. Chairman, I'd like as well to submit a copy of a letter from the Association of Members of Congress dealing with this subject. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Without hearing no objections, the letter will be entered into the record. I want to thank you, Mr. Fox. Our next witness is Mr. Blameyer. Mr. Blameyer, you're recognized for 5 minutes for the purposes of opening statements. Take as much time as you may consume.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Rush, and members of the subcommittee, and Ranking Member Barton. My name is Gene Blameyer. I am the athletic director at Boise State University, and I also founded the Humanitarian Bowl in Boise, Idaho 12 years ago, and am currently on the board of directors of the bowl game. The issues I would like to address with you today are the following. First, competitiveness. And I would refer you to the handout that you received in your information packet. Boise State's football team is the winningest program in the country over the past 10 years, with a winning percentage of 84.3% and an overall record of 108 wins against 20 losses. In the past 10 years, Boise State football has the nation's best conference winning percentage at over 93%, 70 wins and 5 losses, and also the nation's best home winning percentage at 97%, 64 wins and 2 losses. In the past 5 years, Boise State has finished the regular season undefeated 3 times, in 2004, 06, and 08. Boise State's football record ranks number 8 overall all time in the country. The team has won over 70% of its games. Our success is not recent, but spans nearly 80 years. Boise State is also one of the most nationally televised teams in the country, with no fewer than 4 games televised nationally each of the past 6 years. 33 times in those years, Boise State has been on national television, and we are scheduled to be on national television 7 times again this fall. Nearly 6 national telecasts per year. In 2004, Boise State went undefeated and finished the season ranked 9th in the BCS rankings. Boise State did not get invited to the BCS. However, Michigan, ranked 13th, and Pittsburgh, ranked 21st, did get invited. In 2006, Boise State again went undefeated and finished the season ranked 8th in the BCS rankings and was invited to the Fiesta Bowl to play the University of Oklahoma. Boise State defeated Oklahoma in one of the greatest games ever played. In 2008, Boise State again went undefeated and finished the season ranked 9th in the BCS rankings. While Boise State did not get invited to the BCS again, Ohio State ranked 10th, Cincinnati ranked 12th, and Virginia Tech ranked 19th did. 3 times in the past 5 years, Boise State has won all of its games in the current BCS system, never came close to playing in the national championship game. The BCS system not only restricts access, but essentially precludes schools from playing in the national championship. How many more years do we need to go undefeated before we get a chance? We believe the BCS system is exclusionary and limits access to BCS bowls to the benefit of automatic qualifying conferences and to the detriment of non-automatic qualifying conferences. The automatic qualifying criteria bestowed on the 6 automatic qualifying conferences, in our opinion, should be adjusted, altered, or eliminated. Third is revenue distribution. The BCS revenue distribution formula and automatic qualifying criteria is heavily weighted toward rewarding the AQ conferences and not rewarding the non-AQ conferences. The automatic qualifying conferences receive approximately 90% of the BCS revenues unless a non-AQ conference school, which encompasses 51 schools, qualifies for a BCS game. Annually, non-AQ conferences are only guaranteed a little over 9% of the total revenue to split among 51 institutions. The last point is governance. The BCS does not afford conferences equitable representation on the BCS Presidential Oversight Committee, which is the body that governs the BCS. The automatic qualifying conferences, the 6, receive 6 votes. Notre Dame receives 1 vote. The non-qualifying conferences, 5 conferences, 51 schools, receive a total of 1 vote. 65 schools get 6 votes, 51 schools get 1 vote, and 1 school gets 1 vote. This voting distribution is unfair, inequitable, and totally unmanageable. One president cannot adequately represent 51 institutions in 5 different conferences. The NCAA sponsors 88 championships in almost every sport, but they do not sponsor the biggest one, the championship of the Football Bowl subdivision, formerly Division 1A. We believe there is a lot of revenue being left on the table without having the NCAA run this championship. The 6 automatic qualifying conference commissioners and the athletic director at Notre Dame control the BCS and the national championship for major college football. This group has devised a system that gives them approximately 90% of the proceeds and essentially excludes over 50 institutions from playing for the national championship. The BCS system, in our opinion, needs to be more equitable financially, more accessible, and provide more institutions with fair representation. Thank you for the opportunity to share these concerns with you today.
The chair thanks the gentleman and thanks all the witnesses.